Welcome to another episode of I Wonder, Doctor.
Let's talk about how the body maintains optimal levels of blood glucose.
I know what this is. We're going to talk about insulin.
Yeah, we made it. And let me give an overview of the mechanism in general. We eat a meal. Most meals contain carbohydrates.
Yeah.
The carbohydrate fraction of that meal is going to be digested down into tiny little molecules, ultimately into glucose. They're small enough to go through the intestinal membrane and enter the bloodstream. At that point, blood glucose levels start to rise. In fact, I'd like to illustrate that for you. So, optimal levels being maintained all along, and then you eat a meal right there, and then the blood glucose levels start to rise.
Right.
At that point, the body secretes this specially designated hormone called insulin that has several functions. The principal function of it is it opens the floodgates of the cell membrane to allow glucose to move out of the blood and into the cells. It's into the cells where the glucose needs to go.
I see.
So the blood insulin level, ordinarily at very low levels, starts to rise as it senses that carbohydrate broken down into blood glucose.
Yeah.
The blood glucose levels then start to fall as the glucose enters the cells, and then the insulin levels start to fall back to their optimal range, which is very low under ordinary circumstances.
This describes insulin. I finally think I understand what insulin does. I think it's something like this. I have a certain amount of sugar floating around in my blood at any given time. That's good. Then I eat a meal, and if it has carbs in it, the sugar levels rise. The body wants to do something with that extra sugar, so what it does is it secretes insulin, and what insulin does is it opens up the cell membranes to receive that sugar so that I can use it. And it also gets it out of the bloodstream, something that's critically important to not have too much sugar floating around in there. So then the sugar levels drop, right, because there isn't as much anymore. They're in the cells now, and thus the insulin levels drop right behind it.
Precisely. That's a description of a healthy glucose insulin regulating mechanism.
Yeah.
And should something happen to that mechanism, and things can happen to that mechanism, we're moving towards diabetes or we have diabetes. And
Right.
we'll inspect the kind of dysregulation that can occur to that mechanism.
Got it. And there are things we can do about this to prevent it from happening in the first place, or maybe reduce some of the effects of it once it is occurring?
Exactly. That's exactly why we're presenting this. Because there's a lot of things that we can do to prevent it and to roll it back, thus to heal it if it does get dysregulated.
Now, as you know, this is only the beginning. We created the weekly school, and we put into it everything we can think of to help people heal.
There are more videos in this series available in our weekly school. Click to join. It's free.